Today on CityCast Denver, we heard a rumor that somewhere in the Denver metro area, there's a fully automated McDonald's, as in no employees at all. So instead of talking more about the election, we helped solve a mystery. Me and producer Paul Caroli are talking about the alleged Robo-McDonald's, a pricey cleanup at Elitch's, more parking problems, and the lengths people go to play pickleball in this city. Today is Election Day, April 4th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Bree. Good morning.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, April 4th.
Election
also
Day.
known as Election Day.
The big one.
The big one. However, we've been talking about this election for, 6 months. Today, we're not talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, what else are we going to do about it anyway? People are voting. They've already voted.
Right.
Tomorrow we'll have results.
We're going to talk about it tonight, technically, as the results roll in, and you'll hear more of that. You'll hear all of that tomorrow. So today we're not talking about the election, which means we're not talking about the new article that came out about Mike Johnston's another infusion of mega cash from outside donors.
We're not going to discuss that.
Okay. What else are we not going to discuss?
I don't think we should discuss the Denver Post piece about Lisa Calderon, Candy Sedabaca, the ethics, the financing complaint.
Yep.
I don't want to talk about that.
I don't either. We're not talking about that.
We might have links to the show notes or links in the show notes about some of these stories. I
don't know. I feel like if you go to that link, it'll blow your computer up or something.
No, we got great stuff to talk about. We got great stuff.
Yeah. And also, we're not talking about low voter turnout because we actually don't know what it's going to look like.
Could be anything.
It could be anything. So, yes. So we're not talking about that. But we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Weather's warming up for sure.
Yeah.
I was out over the weekend. I was at Wash Park. I saw the lowriders roll out in my neighborhood. So that's like the springtime signal. People are getting ready to show their cars off.
Nice.
What about you, Paul?
Nice. Well, I mean, Elitch's was in the news last week. So I'm thinking about amusement parks. Did you see this story? Do you know what's happening with Elitch's?
I do. And I don't want to say I have different feelings about this than you do, but what's funny to me is we're talking about Elitch's, which for old Denver heads, this is known as New Elitch's. And obviously old Elitch's was on the north side. But this is a story about New Elitch's, which is about to become old Elitch's because it's going to move. So it's in the news for an interesting reason. I did not know this prior to reading this story, that the Elitch's that we know today in the Central Platte Valley is built on a Superfund site. So Public Service Company of Colorado, which was the precursor to Xcel, operated a power plant there from 1889 to 1928, I believe.
Damn, 1889? A power plant right downtown? That must have been like one of the first power plants in the city.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Because it was like there wasn't that much of the city yet, right? But it was demolished. It was interesting. The Business Den article said the 50s and 60s is what Xcel told them. So I was like, did it take 2 decades?
Maybe.
But at any rate, it had been gone for a long time. However, in the 80s, they found there was still contaminants in the soil, obviously. And then in 2017, there was more testing done. And it still technically needs a lot of work.
So even after they built the amusement park on top of it in the early to mid 90s, and it's been operating as an amusement park where kids play and people
since 1995, Paul.
Put gum on the wall. That's a historic tradition, is putting gum on the wall. Maybe people are putting that gum back in their mouth, and this is a contaminated site, I'm hearing.
Yeah, now you're bumming me out about it, extra bumming me out.
It's kind of a weird thing that's happening over there.
It's kind of like the story of Superfund sites, I feel like, though. It's just like, oh, whoops. Well, guess this place where people are communing is super toxic. But this was revealed in court documents, as Business Den reported, that in 2017 this was found. So I'm guessing this was around the time they were starting to talk about what they were going to do with the Elitch's land, because it was sold, it was sold, I think, officially at the beginning of this year. And so now Xcel is on the hook for possibly having to do $25 million in remediation work to make it safe, because This is part of this massive redevelopment project. The River Mile District,
right.
Revesco and Kroenke collectively own Ball Arena, surrounding parking lots, Elitch's, obviously, parking lots all the way up to Empower Field at Mile High. Most of, that's a big chunk of Sun Valley. All of that is slated for some kind of development and or redevelopment. So,
and it's best if it's not still dirty from a more than 100-year-old power plant. It would be best.
It would be nice if that was taken care of in the 90s when they moved the park from the north side to the Central Platte Valley. But I guess this is what we know now.
Can I just say, I love this whole story. I as soon as I saw the headline, it just got me thinking about this old idea I fell in love with a few years ago. So they're going to have to move Elitch's, right? Where do you move it? Where do we have a place that would conjure the same sort of sense of danger that an amusement park has?
Oh, no.
This sense of who are the regulators here? Is this place really safe to be? They should move it to Rocky Flats.
I was just I knew you were going to say Rocky Flats. I even knew before you started that buildup because I know you would love talking about Rocky
It's great. Another expensive cleanup went down there. You know what's particularly interesting, though, is I learned during the Rocky Flats project I did a few years ago that one of the proposals for that cleanup was to put a giant concrete slab over it. That would have been an effective way
really
to isolate the contamination. So an amusement park that you might pave, maybe not bad.
This is reminding me of my original complaint about new Elitch's when they moved it. It was all concrete. The beauty of old Elitch's was it was full of trees, and obviously it was Elitch Gardens. It was full of gardens. It was so beautiful, and my initial reaction to new Elitch's was ugh, this place is just a parking lot. But maybe that was a safety. That was a safety thing. At any rate, I hate to be this guy, but I feel like Elitch's is just done. Moving an amusement park seems expensive. The insurance on them is insane. They take up a lot of land mass.
I hope they find somewhere good.
I hope that it lives on. I just doubt it. So go to Lakeside. It rules. Okay.
Yep.
That's the end.
It rules.
That's the end of that story.
Let's move on. We got some other really fun things to dig into.
Yeah.
Can we talk about pickleball?
Yes. I feel like you've been dying to talk about pickleball for a long time, but then all of a sudden it came to a head in the city. This is probably one of the most contentious issues in the city if we weren't having an election. So
100%.
What is going on with pickleball? First of all, Paul, can you explain pickleball? Do you know how to play pickleball?
I don't.
Okay.
It looks like tennis meets ping pong. It's halfway between. And you have this hard paddle and you hit a hard wiffle ball. I do know that it's very loud, which is the whole root of this whole complaint.
Right.
Every time you walk past, it's thunk, 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 thunk. I'm sure you've heard it. And last summer was just nuts because people went crazy for pickleball. There was this guy who went to jail because he painted on the floor of the Central Park Rec Center.
That's right.
They call him mayor of pickleball. Yeah, we're not talking about politics, but I saw some photos where Mike Johnston went and played pickleball with the mayor of pickleball. And they had a nice hug afterwards. Interesting campaign stunt, but we're not talking about politics.
Okay.
What were we talking about? Pickleball mania?
Yeah, I was we're talking about pickleball because it's become sort of a political issue, right? You mentioned the noise, and I think that's the root of this problem.
Yes. Thank you for getting me back on track. So the noise thing has already been an issue this year. Centennial, a couple weeks ago, according to Westword, approved a 6-month moratorium on court construction within 500 feet of any residence. So people were complaining about the noise down there. And now, just this past week and weekend, according to 9 News, Denver Parks and Rec last week announced they'd be shutting down the pickleball courts at Congress Park, which is I've learned, the #1 pickleball spot in the city. There is a group of 1,000 people, 1,400 on Facebook, that meets there and plays pickleball for 12 to 14 hours every day.
Okay, so this is definitely impacting my opinion on this because originally, I will say, I was noise complaints. Oh, I'm so sorry, Congress Park. Come to my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Street racing 24/7. I don't have a lot of sympathy, but I'd say 12 to 14 hours a day. I can see where that would be super annoying.
Yeah, 12 to 14 hours
get
a
it.
day. And then also, this whole thing, by the way, is being run for the city by Deputy Parks and Rec Manager Scott Gilmore, who was on the show yesterday talking about this bison transfer program. So at the same time he's transferring bison, he's also dealing with neighborhood fights over pickleball. That's this guy's job. Just, we can take a second to appreciate that. But he said that he has had complaints from 14 of the 18 homes on the street next to the Congress Park courts. 14 of the 18. So
wow,
it sounds like it's been a real big nuisance for that neighborhood. But then on the other side, it's hard because, pickleball is this new thing. Why can't people have this great community? It sounds like it's been really beneficial for a lot of people. We had one listener write in, it DM'd me over the weekend to let me know that they were having this big cookout party thing on Sunday for the last day of pickleball at Congress Park. And he was just like heartbroken, it sounds like. He says he's a regular. It was a very special and tight community. And now we have to go find a new home. He says they're organizing to find a new space to like potentially stop this still, because they did have some previous compromise with the city about maybe moving the courts. But so I don't think this story is over, but yeah, hurt feelings. It's hard. It's hard hearing about this.
Yeah, I mean, also because our parks are incredible, right? Like it's one of the things I brag about Denver's done really right is our park system is amazing. And it's just one of those things that draws people. And honestly, Paul, I was like I said, I was at Wash Park over the weekend, which can you imagine, Wash Park on a 68, 70 degree day, early spring. It was
frolickers.
Holy cow. There's like hundreds of people playing volleyball.
I'm sure.
The basketball courts are packed. There's the usual rollerbladers with their stereos on their fanny packs, their jammy packs or whatever. Yeah. I mean, there's so much noise. So I don't know. I mean, I feel for these folks. I don't have a good solution. I don't know what it is. It sounds like it's something that's like should be indoors, like in
that's
some
kind of what I was
capacity.
thinking. Like I get the appeal of doing it outdoors, but I think like racquetball, you have an indoor court for that, or you have a dedicated space. Or, I mean, the private market is coming up with solutions here. Also in Centennial, the guy, Robert Thompson, who started Punch Bowl Social, I don't know if you've been following this, but he's starting this huge pickleball campus called Camp Pickle, where there's going to be like a dozen courts. There's going to be bars and restaurants. It's like 2 big barn houses. It's going to be huge. So I don't know. I think, maybe this is going to be just privatized and we're going to lose this as an amenity in our parks.
I think that's a big bummer, but I also don't know how much that impact. Like, I feel like maybe the pickleballers would probably be fine with going to the privatized version of it. To me, I don't love when we have to privatize something that we were able to do in a public space. But if that's the solution, I guess that might be the solution. The racquetball or squash, those examples are exactly what I was thinking of. The room, you have to go in a room to play them, basically.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm sorry, you guys. I hope there's something to be done. And I hope you keep your community together regardless of whether the parks open up back for you. Because I know, if anything, people being able to get together and commune around something is like something so much of us were missing, especially during the pandemic. So try to keep those friends together, even if you guys aren't playing pickleball anymore. Okay, next story. The Robo-McDonald's. Paul, what is the
mystery of the Robo-McDonald's?
The mystery of the Robo-McDonald's. You're right. It is a mystery because this story popped up like last week, and then we like had trouble finding. There was like no local coverage of it. It was just like this McDonald's, this fully no human running McDonald's is in Denver, and we were like, where? Yeah. So what's the deal?
Well, yeah, I think actually you stumbled on the article first last week, and it was in this publication that, looking back on it, does look kind of shady. It's called the Economic Times, but they said that earlier this month, the world saw the first fully automated, no employees McDonald's outlet in Fort Worth, Texas. And then, the most important part, this was quickly followed by another Robo-Mac outlet in Denver, Colorado. They don't say where. So it's interesting because it's here somewhere, maybe.
Right. I don't don't know. I feel like if it was somewhere, think about how big of a deal is when we get like an In-N-Out or like when Krispy Kreme came here in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like this would have been, you're right. Maybe it sounds like baloney.
A little bit, but there's also lots of like plausible reasons why they'd be trying something like this and they'd be doing it here. Other companies have done stuff like this here. Bird Call, the local chicken chain, they're famous for implementing this person-free ordering scheme. You don't order from someone over the counter. You just, type in an iPad. So they're already automating. Good Times has a robot voice that takes your orders when you drive through. The location
Not
of Colorado.
always.
Not always. The location of Colorado Boulevard has one. Sometimes it switches back and forth between robot and human. So like a human does some parts and the robot does some parts. And it's only, I think it's only at that one. But there's these precedents for it.
I have to say my experience with the kiosk at a McDonald's has already been horrendous. Like it's like not easy to use in any capacity. It's also not accessible. It's like this giant screen that's like you have to be able to stand to use. It's so stupid. And then you always end up going to the counter to talk to the guy because it didn't like take your order. I don't know. Yeah. At any rate, don't love it, but
I don't
it's
love
the
it either.
future.
I think for some purposes. Well, I don't know. That's kind of the whole question here is, does it work? Because that's what these companies are doing is they're testing it. And if consumers like it and they go to it, then there's clearly a market for it and they'll proliferate. And people like us who aren't loving it aren't going to eat there.
Right.
So we got to try to track this thing down, see if it's real. We put this in the newsletter. We got a listener.
We got a reader.
We got a reader. Write in. Katie A. She says, I heard this Robo-McDonald's is at Arapahoe and I-25 in Centennial, but I have not been there to confirm. That McDonald's has been there since the 70s, but they did just recently renovate it. So that rumor may be true.
I know which one she's talking about. Interesting.
Very interesting. Next day, well, as soon as we got this article, I put in an email to McDonald's corporate and I was like, what's going on? Where's this location? I have to know everything about this. What are y'all doing? I didn't get a response until after Katie A. wrote in.
You heard from McDonald's.
I heard from McDonald's. McDonald's says, while there was a highly automated test restaurant in Texas, there is not one in Colorado. Think about the wording. There is not one in Colorado. A few years ago, the Arapahoe store was part of the test, but has returned to being a fully staffed location.
Oh my God. So Katie A was partially right.
I think Katie A was partially right.
Hey.
And the fact that it was part of a test of increased automation and that they aren't still doing it, I don't know. I don't know what this means, but we did hear from Katie A again. She said she did make it over to the McDonald's on Arapahoe and I-25 yesterday. I'm not exactly sure what is meant by robot McDonald's, but this store was pretty much contact free. There were people in the back making food, but you don't really see anyone. You order from a board, then your food is slid out onto a shelf where you pick it up. Maybe it will transition into the robo thing at a later point. So I think right now they're doing one of these hybrid things like we've seen at Good Times and Bird Call.
Oh, I have so many feelings about this. It feels, in one way, I think, yes, of course, maybe we get rid of these jobs and we move closer to a universal basic income situation so we don't have to have folks working in these jobs that can be really not great, stressful, getting yelled at all the time by customers, just the hard work you have to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also thinking about how much fun I've had in retail as a person where my friends come to visit me at work and stuff. And it's just part of the experience. But I mean, I've been to a similar situation that Katie is explaining, but it's not quite that automated. But it still feels like you're standing in a public restroom ordering food off of a screen and then it comes out of a hole and it's so depressing. At any rate, Katie A., thank you for doing some investigating for us. We really appreciate it.
The real star of the show here is Katie A.
But if I don't know, we'll check back on that. Story developing.
So, Bree, let's talk about parking. It's another hot topic in the city. We had some news about some parking changing.
Prior to the election, parking was the number one way to get people to start yelling at each other in this city.
Parking and pickleball.
Parking, pickleball, elections. So there's this big parking garage on the corner of East Colfax and Columbine. It's attached to what has sort of become, it was an adaptive reuse of the Lowenstein Theater, which you will know as Tattered Cover, Twist and Shout, C Film Center. There's a Chipotle. I mean, there's all kinds of things in this.
You know what's in there now?
What?
That new plant-based sushi place. That took the old Chocolate Lab location.
Oh,
They totally changed the interior. It's beautiful.
I have to say I never went to Chocolate Lab because I didn't understand what it was.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another day. Yeah. Plant-based sushi?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's cool.
Have you tried it?
Yeah.
Okay, I might have to try it. Interesting.
So if you want to visit, you're going to have to pay for parking now to eat at plant-based sushi place, Wellness Sushi.
It surprised me a little bit that this wasn't already a pay for parking situation because that place can be pretty busy. However, anytime I've ever been to that complex, I always find a parking spot. It's not tough.
Why did they change it?
Well, safety concerns, break-ins, car break-ins. So I guess they're going to put in sort of a gated parking thing and then have increased security patrols.
That's a shame.
Denverite reports that the garage will now cost $2 an hour to park with a $15 a day maximum. But you can get your parking validated. So if you go to see a movie or you go buy some records at Twist, they'll do parking validation. So it still is technically free if you're a customer. I guess people must be parking over there when they go to like the farmer's market across the street at East or something.
I could see that.
Because I was trying to figure out like what else you would park in there for.
If you're having a walk.
Things.
Going to Pete's.
Yeah, but like parking's not super hard to find on Colfax.
No, it's not.
I don't know.
It is surprising. And it's a shame that this is happening, these safety concerns. Although, I mean, like I said, I went to Wellness Sushi a few weeks ago with my wife, Megan, and, we did run into a few people on the street that were kind of intimidating. And it was a little bit desolate because the C has stopped doing 9 p.m. showings on the weekends. Oh. So in the evening... And also that tattered cover, I mean, it's just different now. It's different. They don't have the basement. It's just a little bit more dark and I don't know. It's not the tattered cover that I remembered from before the pandemic, at least that location.
That's what my husband said, which really bums me out.
This is a tough one though. I hope people come back. I hope people try the sushi place and go and like make it a little bit, bring some life back to that spot because I love all those places. I know, me too. I have to say the Wellness Sushi is like a really weird name. That sounds like you're getting a massage there or something. I don't love it. I want to talk about this, but I'll talk to you more offline about what plant-based sushi looks like. But at any rate, so just be aware. Just be aware. I think the biggest thing is you want to remember when you go to see a movie or something to get your parking validation. I think that's the biggest concern too for like the film center and stuff is like they don't want to upset their customers, so they're really trying to like put signs up like please remember to ask us to validate your parking. So just keep that in mind for that change. It's interesting we're talking about paid parking because I was thinking about how last week you and I went to the Cherry Creek Mall and paid for parking twice. Because we went in and out of the mall for different things. Yeah, because remember we left. We were going to go get lunch at Cherry Cricket. We were going to get lunch at Cherry Cricket, and then we couldn't find parking. Yeah.
In Cherry Creek North, so we went back to the mall to eat at Nordstrom Cafe. But like
the fact that it kind of blew my mind being over there because we were working on this project about Cherry Creek. That y'all are going to hear in a couple of weeks. And I really can't wait because it's fascinating. But to be experiencing it, the current status of how you pay for parking and how you move around that mall, boy, it changed the way I think about it, especially doing it with you. Yeah.
I mean, again, that's like was my third place for a really long time. I mean, technically it was my second place. It was my workplace for a long time. But the paying for parking thing does change things a little bit. And just like, you're right, how you actually physically navigate the mall and then maybe going back and forth between there and Cherry Creek North. And it's so much more than that, though. We're talking so much more than parking. Like you said, we're doing a whole week of this coming up.
Yes.
It's like Pizza Week, but I don't want to say better because Pizza Week was super fun. But this is just something different.
Yeah.
It's about a part of the city that maybe you have some preconceived notions about. And I'm hoping that we can tell a little deeper story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we need your help. We need your help for this mysterious project. Can you send us voicemails where you describe how you would get to the Cherry Creek Shopping Center and how you feel about that?
Like how you would physically transport yourself from your home to the shopping center or Cherry Creek North. How do you get around and get there?
Yeah. If you do it by bike, how do you like the trails? If you do it by car, how do you like the parking? How do you like the roads, the connections, the intersections, anything? It's all on the table. We want to hear about you and your transit choices.
For Cherry Creek.
That's all. Yes, for Cherry Creek. It's all going to make sense soon. And I think you're going to want to be a part of it because it's going to be a really cool thing.
So you can call our Cherry Creek Transit Story hotline at 720-500-5418. As always, leave us a message with your name and neighborhood and your transit story related to how you get in and around the Cherry Creek area. Again, our number is 720-500-5418. And please leave us a message. We would love to hear it, and we'll most likely play it on the show. So tell us a good story. All right, Paul. By the time folks hear this, it will be... We still won't know. we still won't have any idea about our election situation.
But tomorrow we will.
Tomorrow we will. I hope you all have voted. You can do it. Oh, you can do it in person too, right? They're still voting. Yeah. There's still polling places. So if you're one of those people that's like, I just really love the in-person experience, that is still a possibility. I'll put a link in our show notes to the clerk and recorder's information on how to vote if you haven't already. But best of luck to everyone, and we will be talking to you in the future about that very thing. Paul, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Bree.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell Mayor McCheese about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Denver, by texting Denver to 66866. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye. Was Mayor McCheese on the ballot? Just kidding. He might as well have been. He probably would have gotten more votes than some people. Name recognition goes a long way, as we know. I also asked Twitter where we should order takeout from on election night. Can you narrow it down to a type of food or give me 16 options? You should go to 17 different hot chicken restaurants around town and then get 17 beers. I don't know, but you should order 16 meals from 16 different restaurants and let us know the top 2. Oh, that's when Twitter's fun.